Who are my favorite fantasy football targets for the first 7 rounds of a redraft league? We tell you why you should start that list with Amon-Ra St. Brown as we begin another edition of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We're part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com. Our co-host, Michelle Majuk, just battling the effects there of the Hurricane Beryl in Houston. So hopefully everything is all right with her, and we'll be back to continue our series looking at every team in the NFL, breaking down their fantasy football value, who you want to target from those teams. And we'll get back to the AFC North and finish it up with the Ravens. So when Michelle is back here, and we'll also turn our attention to the AFC South and get to all the teams before it's all said and done through the AFC East. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Today, I'm going to just fill in here and look at just my 7 favorite fantasy football targets in redraft leagues. We're going to go first 7 rounds, and we're going to fill out all the major positions here. So the rule is 7 rounds. We got to find 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end, and a quarterback with those selections. So we're playing under those rules and parameters. And we're also going to say we're going to pick in the middle of each round. So we're going to treat this as a 12-team half-point PPR league. So we're picking in maybe the 6th, 7th spot, maybe 5th, somewhere there, and a player that definitely has a shot to be available. We're not just saying Christian McCaffrey, take him at the top. Of course, we love him at number 1, but these are the players that may drop in the rounds, may have better value than you think, and you can take advantage of those in those segments. So basically going 1 through 12 and then ending up 73 to 84. So that's how it's going to play out here on the show. Now that you know what we're doing with the rules here, we'll start. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is my first target in leagues if I can't get that access to Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, maybe even Breece Hall at the top at running back. I look at CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase. They're all in the mix here, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is my favorite target here because Lions, not a ton of vacated targets in relation to other teams, but 91, which are significant. Jameson Williams is a bit of a question mark. They have Khalif Raymond, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Josh Reynolds is no longer there. This offense is basically running in the inside of the field between a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta, tight end. He's another target I like, but he's got a little bit more expensive. Well, Amon-Ra, however you look at it last year, he was a top 4 wide receiver, top 3 there overall, top 4 in average scoring. He started getting into the end zone. He can have a Cooper Kupp-like season, and we say this not just to kind of hype it too much, but you look at him and his role, very similar to Cooper Kupp, except that he's the dominant force here. And I look at his youth, and this is the type of season that you can get from him. Cooper Kupp played a similar role for Jared Goff as the go-to guy. It did take a transition to Matthew Stafford to get Kupp at that level, but Goff is playing at a high level. This offensive line is very intact. Again, he has to be the go-to guy all over the field. I think he's expanded more than just being a slot ace. He can now score touchdowns easily without some tweaking last year, some injury issues he battled through while playing, that he could have easily put up 1,800 yards. And this would have been another Calvin Johnson-like explosion in Detroit from a wide receiver. So, again, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown at the top. He's also very consistent. You're going to get the targets from him every week. He doesn't finish very low. In any given week, he always has a high ceiling, but an extremely high floor. That's why he's a very good draft target. And he's in his prime. He's got his contract. Everything lines up. The offense is the same with Ben Johnson. So no variables. That's what we're looking for. And a brilliant place to succeed. And that's why Amon-Ra St. Brown starts my draft as my round 1 pick, filling out wide receiver 1. Now we're going to turn our attention to RB1 if we get to the second round. So getting into picks 13 to 24, roughly in a 12-team half-point PPR in round 2. You look at Derrick Henry. Now, you will not believe that the Ravens have 232 vacated carries, and this was the top rushing offense in the NFL last season. Gus Edwards scored double-digit touchdowns as a power back here. There's not much competition there. So think about it. Gus Edwards, what he did last year is just scratching the surface of what Derrick Henry can do in this offense as the complete workhorse. They're not going to try to force in Keaton Mitchell too much here. They got Derrick Henry to try to get a ring with him. He's going to play off Lamar Jackson well. This offensive line is very strong with Tyler Linderbaum in the middle, and they'll just run the ball down people's throats, and they should be ahead in a lot of games. Their defense is top-notch here, still without Mike McDonald. They did lose Patrick Queen, but their defense is still going to dictate a lot of what they do. They still have Justin Madubuike up front, Kyle Hamilton cleaning up in the secondary, so this is going to be defense, running game oriented team, and there's going to be a lot of touchdowns available. So Mark Andrews could be slowing down a little bit as a red zone threat. You don't have a lot, still a wide receiver that you can trust behind Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman is kind of in a make or break season here with the kind of cheaper deal that he's returning on. So this is going to be a run heavy team. They're going to make no secret about it. Todd Monken wants to do that. He wants to run, pound it, and throw downfield with Lamar Jackson to Flowers and the other guys that they have. But I think Derrick Henry, I mean, if he doesn't score 12 touchdowns, it would be shocking to me. I mean, 12 should be the baseline for him in this offense. He's going to get a lot of opportunities inside the 5. So love it. And he can just catch a few passes, and he's going to pay off in this offense. So I love Derrick Henry overall as a target in the second round. Again, he finished as RB10 in average scoring last year, but the Titans were kind of transitioning. Things were kind of fading. He didn't have a lot of help in the passing game with Will Levis and going there at quarterback. So now run-heavy offense, centerpiece. This is what Derrick Henry has delivered in before. He's getting a little older, but I think he has one more big explosive season left, and he would not surprise me at all, just based on his running, if he finished as a top 3 running back here, even in half-point PPR, because that's how big the Ravens running game can be and how front-running of a team it can be, where he could get a lot of closing carries in the second half of season. So I would just feel really good if I started my drafts with St. Brown and Henry, depending on where I was picking in the first round. But somewhere middle to late, you can still probably get these guys, so that's why I like to target them. Now, we will get into the rest of this here through round 7. So we'll go rounds 3 through 7, who I'm targeting. So we filled out wide receiver 1, RB1. We still have those 5 starting positions to go at the skill position. So we'll get into that in our next 2 segments. Before that, we have to hear from one of our fantastic sponsors. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by GameTime, as I mentioned at the top. And if you haven't used GameTime to get the tickets to all the events you're looking for this summer, then you're doing it wrong, because it's a lot of fun to make sure that I'm locked into baseball games I want to go to. And we don't have Major League here in Charlotte where I live, but I do like to do it if I'm out of town looking to follow my Cardinals there. We'll also use it for minor league baseball, some good deals that I can get as well. When I'm on the road, I love to check out a minor league game at the last minute. They'll take care of you there. And I'm a big Northwestern fan. They're going to take care of me in college football season for a lot of things I'm looking for. And, of course, MLS is great here now in Charlotte with Charlotte FC. Last-minute tickets, they're going to also take care of me well at game time. I'm always going to be able to find a really good deal at the price point and seat I want. So it's easy for you, whatever you're looking for, whether it's a sporting event, concert, comedy show, just browse through the Game Time app and look at all the games available to you. Could be MLB near you, MLS, all the good summer action here. It even could be something as big as Copa America here. We have that in Charlotte with Uruguay and Colombia in the semifinals. So a lot of big events. They got you covered. They run the gamut here. I like the features. It's very easy to see last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, and easy to find any tickets you're looking for, MLB or otherwise. You can see all the views, so you know exactly what you're going to get when you arrive. Lowest price guarantee that you're going to get as well with Game Time. You can get event cancellation protection, job loss protection, all that good stuff that will secure your tickets and make you feel good about it. So You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute deals for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime, whether it's MLB, MLS, or more. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, let's continue the show. So round one, we took care of wide receiver one, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Happy about that. Derrick Henry, RB one with round two. Let's go to round three. And Devin Achan is the guy I'm targeting here. Now, if you look at the average scoring last year, two Dolphins finished back-to-back behind Christian McCaffrey and Kyron Williams in average per game half-point PPR scoring. One was Raheem Mostert because he scored all those touchdowns. The other was Devin Achan. He did through big games. So we know he had some explosive, ridiculous games with limited touches. But now the Dolphins have seen what they have in him. Mostert is getting a little bit older. His jersey number last year, 31. Is he going to hold up again? He's had a long history of injuries going back to his 49ers days with knees. Achan is now fully healthy going into the season. He was a little bit slow to come out of the gate last year, but when he was at the starting line, I mean, he just blew off and just exploded here for big games. So when you look at it, Achan is in a great rushing offense. This offensive line did take a few hits, losing Robert Hunt, and they're going to have to adjust that. But they still have Austin Jackson, a pretty good front for run blocking, more so even than pass protection here. So Achan is so explosive. He can take over games. He's like those guys that we've talked about, those kind of change of pace, quick backs from Elijah Mitchell to Keaton Mitchell. But we know he's legit where he can handle a big workload of 15 to 20 touches and be very effective here with scoring opportunities and just explosive runs that could really boost his per carry average here. So he doesn't need a lot of work if he's going to get high leverage touches near the goal line, be able to reel off a few long touchdown runs as well. Achan is now settled in. Mike McDaniel knows exactly how to use him. Dolphins should be in strong playoff contention again. And I think you'll see a lot of delivery here from Achan where he gets more regularly involved in the offense, as they don't want to overwork Mostert being a little bit older and a guy that could break down with his injuries here, given the wear and tear of his past career. So Devin Achan, I love it. The offense is great here. Again, TD should go up. He should have better health. Age is better than Mostert. And again, the production was there last year. He just needed a bigger opportunity. I think that will come this year. So I love that as a target. And Henry and Achan, just forget it. I feel really good about RB1 and RB2. So close the book at that position for this particular look at the favorite draft targets, because we got to fill wide receiver and quarterback and tight end. Well, let's go to our wide receiver two. This is Amari Cooper. We've talked about him, breaking him down in depth for the Browns in that episode, why he's so special and why that you can trust him with Deshaun Watson, really with any quarterback. This guy has just gone from quarterback to quarterback, whether it's Derek Carr or Dak Prescott or Deshaun Watson or Joe Flacco last year when he had a massive explosive game in Houston. Remember that, where he had 235 yards, was dominated his career best game. And he just had some massive games. And remember that thing with the home road splits? Well, it kind of went away because Cooper had his big game in Houston. So there was a road game where Cooper went off. And I know Flacco helped, but I think this offense in general is going to help. And it's a pass-happier offense with Ken Dorsey. So, look, Flacco got it going because he was more targeting Cooper and David Njoku. I think it'll be more the case here because he's the clear number one. They're figuring out their other spots here. What's the role for Cedric Tillman or David Bell or any of these other receivers? And Njoku might be going to more of a blocking role in this offense as it's pass-happy and downfield-oriented here. With Watson, Watson usually feeds one guy a lot. We've seen it back in the day with DeAndre Hopkins. Cooper's kind of that savvy veteran he can trust as well. So I love Cooper. I mean, there's just going to be eating up of targets here all over the field. He was wide receiver 18 last season. So if I get him here as a potential wide receiver too with some upside, yeah, he's definitely in a real good position to score. So I love targeting Amari Cooper here. Again, he's not the juiciest pick, but again, I have two guys that are consistently going to see targets in St. Brown and Cooper. Cooper might be more of a floor play than a ceiling play versus St. Brown, but man, just having him, I know I can count on him getting the key targets every week in this offense. I mean, Dorsey should bump up the percentage of pass plays, and Watson being fully healthy should make sure that Cooper is consistently involved and separates a lot from the question marks at wide receiver they have elsewhere. Now, those are pretty good for our 4 picks here to start. St. Brown, Henry, Adams, and Cooper. Notice we resisted the urge to take a quarterback or tight end because good things can come very well to those who wait in drafts. So we'll get into that. We'll show you who our quarterback and tight end are in our final segment. And then that one sleeper wide receiver I'm looking at who can really outscore his wide receiver 3 status. We'll get to all that in our final segment of today's show. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn on the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the streaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on the YouTube or free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so you can put a drum roll in your head because I'm going to reveal the quarterbacks that I'm going after in a lot of leagues. So if you're playing a league with me somewhere, just be prepared that this player could really come off the board. And there's good reason for it. There's some parallel with the production. So drum roll for Anthony Richardson, your quarterback of the Colts. He's now going around round 5, right there with CJ Stroud in a lot of leagues, ahead of Joe Burrow and some of these others. But is he worth it? I think he is, because think about it. Jalen Hurts finished as QB6 in the Shane Steichen offense. Jalen Hurts was not the passer Richardson was in year 2. Richardson's more of a natural passer. I know he's had the shoulder injury, but consider this. In the 3 full games that he played last season, he totals 69 points. A very good number because you break that down, it's 23 points per game. Remember, he was hurt. He had the hamstring, he had the concussion. Those kept him out of most of the games. So technically, he only played like 3.5 games, and really less than that, maybe 3.25 games here. So in the 3 full games, 69 points. So you divide that again. That is up there with Lamar Jackson. And there's the comparisons. He would have been way up there, right, challenging Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen as a QB1 last year, had he kept it up. I think it was a great value last year. Now you might say this year, okay, we're going to go down a little bit more and go after that next rookie who could do this, and that's Jaden Daniels with his running ability with Cliff Kingsbury. And that's another target I like in drafts, whether you're playing Superflex or 1 QB, deeper leagues. Jaden Daniels would be this version of this. But if I want to draft a quarterback in the first 7 rounds, and I say, I got to get on this run and get the guy I want, it would be Anthony Richardson. Because, again, natural learner, very good at doing it. And he's got an improved kind of overall offense. I think they're going to protect him well. I like Bernard Raymond, the left tackle. They're going to be better all up front. They're going to protect him, allow him to throw the ball downfield. I think you'll see bigger returns here. Josh Downs and Alec Pierce helping out Michael Pittman Jr. I think you'll see a little bit more from tight end this year as well. So the Colts pass game should open up, and there's no question with Jonathan Taylor. Remember how much we like Lamar Jackson playing off now an elite running back. A top running quarterback, you want him to be out there with a very good running back. And that helps because now you got to worry about 2 things in the backfield. When you're executing the zone read, which we've seen Steichen do with Jalen Hurts, you can put up some big numbers running and passing. I like the dual threat, very similar to Hurts, and that's why they went after him, right? They have Steichen, came from Philadelphia, and just has to stay healthy, but that's the case for every player. Let's be honest here. But there's all indication that he's going to have a big year 2. And again, CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, I can't go for them as much because I know I'm going to get the passing and running ability here. So you have Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen giving you that aspect as well as Hurts. And then if I'm going to go for the pure passing at this stage, I might go Mahomes, right? But I'm not going to go necessarily to go Burrow or Stroud because they're just not going to give me the running upside, the cheat code potential that Richardson's going to have on top of throwing downfield. So I'm going to take him at number 5 on this team. So that'll fill out my 5th spot. 5th round pick. That's where he's going right now. I think his value could go up or down, but I think the upside is clearly there. So I'm looking at that for sure with Richardson. So round 5 is about where I'm going to target my quarterback the earliest in leagues, just because you have Dak Prescott and some other values that you can look at later. And I mentioned Jane Daniels or Caleb Williams, even a Brock Purdy. There's some guys you could look at later in 1 QB leagues. 2 QB leagues, Richardson would be a good place to start and back him up with one of those guys. So all kinds of possibilities there that you look at with Richardson, but for our purposes, because we have to draft one in the first 7 rounds, I might wait till round 8 if I can, but Richardson is the guy that I would target because I think he can have the best return on draft investment. All right, let's go to our 6th round pick, Dalton Kcade, who's I circled at tight end. Now, there's a lot of buzz about Sam Laporta in year 2, Trey McBride in year 3. We also have Brock Bowers later in the draft as a rookie first-round pick. But Dalton Kcade is in the best position to succeed of all those young tight ends. Now, he was not much to look at last year. Battled through some injuries, tried to get on the field, was battling Dawson Knox. They didn't use a lot of the 12 personnel to get him out in the field there with Knox. Then they made the change. Dorsey, who now be working with Watson and Cooper and the Browns, they went to Joe Brady. And this is good for Dalton Kcade. They should use more 12 personnel. They cannot rely a lot on Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir, some of these younger receivers, Curtis Samuel. They can't do that, right? These are guys that are okay, but who can take over a game, create some mismatches with athleticism. I think the first-round drafting of Kcade makes a lot more sense now that they moved Stephon Diggs. They need a target there. He can stretch the field as well. They need that element with Gabe Davis gone. So everything says, yeah, Dalton Kcade should have a big year. And typically with first-round talented tight ends, it usually takes a year to get going. And if you look at Kcade being the most talented tight end, it's arguable with him and Sam Laporta from the 2023 draft, then okay, so year 2 is when it'll come. We saw that with Trey McBride. Trey McBride in a weaker class at tight end was the best prospect in terms of receiving. Took him a year, got the targets, had a key role, and we saw the breakout season happen there. So we're not necessarily chasing Laporta and McBride. We're looking for that next guy to have that big year. And I think in the 6th round, Dalton Kcade is an excellent target there. Again, 317 vacated targets for the Bills, including 13 inside the 10. So that gives him an opportunity to score on top of stretching the field. So love it with Dalton Kcade. He's going to be the tight end target in a lot of my leagues, and I might even be more aggressive to draft him if I'm not locked into taking a quarterback here, and which we're not, except in this exercise. And we'll end with my 7th round target. Now, 7th round, you start to see things drop off. You're taking a shot at people. The one real starting position left is quarterback. You could find a tight end that's a little lesser than Kcade. But I look at this. I got my 2 wide receivers. I've got my 2 running backs. I've got my quarterback. I got my tight end. That leaves me with 1 more wide receiver. We started with St. Brown. Let's end with Hollywood Brown. That's right. Marquise Hollywood Brown is our pick here in round 7. They have 118 targets vacated in Kansas City. One of those guys is Marquez Valdez-Scantling that had a lot of those targets. Then you have Rashee Rice. What's going to happen with his suspension? I know they used a first-round pick and they're excited about Xavier Worthy, but Andy Reid's rookie receivers typically don't do well. Rice was a bit of an anomaly, but he was filling the big slot void left by Juju Smith-Schuster last season. Now, you're looking for someone to stretch the field, make big plays, have the speed to track down Patrick Mahomes' deep balls. Marquise Hollywood Brown can do that. He's a veteran. He's savvy. He's played well and put up some decent wide receiver 3 numbers back in the day with his first team, the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. So last year, it was just a painful year. He got hurt. Then you had the quarterback issues as well. You didn't have Kyler Murray for a while. There was no chance for him to succeed there and make that transition after the Cardinals shockingly gave up a first-round pick to the Ravens. Now, let's keep in mind, Brown, Hollywood, was a first-round pick. So, again, he's special. He's got speed to burn. I've seen some tape of him minicamp and training camp. Let's watch what his role develops into. But, again, if Rice is out for a significant amount of time, whenever that judgment comes down, Worthy's still getting his feet wet. They got to throw to Marquise Brown all over the field a little bit more. He can't just be their dedicated deep threat. And I don't think that's why they signed him. And I think they saw him as a bargain signing, which is true. I think they could get the element that they didn't get from Kadarius Toney here from Marquise Hollywood Brown. So all of this points to him being very productive. Again, it's a Patrick Mahomes receiver. Now, I know it's been hard to sustain post Tyreek Hill, another receiver that you would totally trust, but Juju Smith-Schuster and Rice have kind of yielded some pretty good fantasy values as wide receiver threes. And that's what I'm looking for, right? A wide receiver three. I'm not asking for a world beater here. I'm looking for somebody who can finish in the top 30 and do that by a few big plays, a few big games, like having multiple touchdowns, stretching the field. He is capable of doing that. He's a little bit of a boomer bust player. But that's okay on this team because I have St. Brown and Cooper, who have much less volatility than Marquise Hollywood Brown. Now, this is also not the end. I'm going to draft a lot of receivers. I'm not stopping at the third receiver and say, okay, I'm set with him. But in terms of the target, the guy that I have the most upside for at this point, that's what you would look at here in Marquise Hollywood Brown. So there's just so much that you could unpack here with this team. But I'd feel really good about this team. And you should too. If you end up with this team right now, I would feel good. Maybe things will change here as we find out more information. Injuries may develop here. But to go over this team again, Anthony Richardson, our 5th-round pick, is our starting QB. We went back to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Amari Cooper, round 1 and 4, as our wide receivers 1 and 2. Derrick Henry and Devin Achan are our 1-2 punch at running back, rounds 2 and 3. And then we looked at Dalton Kcade in round 6 as our tight end and rounded it all out with Marquise Brown at round 7. So that would be your starting lineup minus the kicker and defense if you use those positions in your league. So just a lot to consider there when you're looking at favorite targets. But that's how it lines up right now. Things are going to change in terms of ADP. Some of these guys could go higher, lower than other guys come into focus. But in this early stage of looking at redraft leagues in 12-team half-point PPR, these are the 7 players that I would target most across positions as we're filling out our lineup, if you like to go in that very linear way of filling out your team. So there you have it. That's this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks so much for listening. Michelle, we hope you're all fine, and we look forward to having you back here to break down the teams here on the show. So can't wait to have Michelle back and break down more of this good fantasy stuff coming here. So take care all, and we will see you next time on Locked On Fantasy Football.